Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave the premises immediately.
Excuse me? I'm a guest at this hotel. Room 804.
Room 804? I don't think so. That's an executive suite.
Yes, it is. I'm here for a medical conference. My hospital booked it.
Your hospital? Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but guests don't dress like that.
Officer Leonard Burke had spent 23 years working in hotel security in downtown Boston. For the past 15 years, he was assigned to the Harborview Grand, a luxurious 5-star hotel where CEOs, movie stars, and international visitors stayed in rooms priced at $600 a night. Over that time, he had been the subject of 31 complaints, 31 separate occasions where Black guests, Latino conference attendees, and Asian business travelers were stopped, questioned, and accused of not belonging in a hotel they had fully paid for. Each complaint was dismissed as preventing trespassing. The hotel management called him cautious. His supervisor called him meticulous. No one ever called him what he truly was, a guard who couldn't imagine that people of color could afford luxury stays, someone who looked at brown skin in expensive spaces and assumed it didn't belong there. One Wednesday morning in Boston, Leonard Burke's protected position began to crumble. Dr. Kamara Stevens had just finished her workout in the hotel gym. She was the chief of neurology at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, one of the country's top neurologists, and she was in Boston for a 3-day medical conference where she was the keynote speaker. Her hospital had reserved an executive suite for her. She had checked in the previous night, attended the opening reception, slept in the king-size bed, and woken early for a workout before her presentation. That morning, she was a 41-year-old Black woman in leggings and a tank top, carrying a towel and a water bottle, heading back to her room. But to Officer Leonard Burke, that sight meant only one thing: she didn't belong. That mistaken assumption sparked a confrontation that would ultimately lead to Burke's firing. A video capturing the incident went viral, racking up 22 million views, and a $9 million lawsuit followed, forcing the hotel industry to confront how its security targets guests of color. But before we go further, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be told, and your support helps us bring more truth into the light. Downtown Boston, the Harborview Grand perched on Atlantic Avenue with views of the harbor, a 28-story glass tower where business deals were made, tourists wandered the Freedom Trail, and conference planners filled ballrooms with medical experts, tech leaders, and academic scholars. The lobby gleamed with marble and brass. The restaurant served $100 steaks. Executive suites offered harbor views and private living areas. This was a hotel where wealth was expected, guests demanded respect, and security existed to maintain the appearance of exclusivity. Dr. Kamara Stevens grew up in Newark, the daughter of Liberian immigrants who juggled multiple jobs to give their children opportunities. She excelled in school, earned a full scholarship to Princeton, and then attended medical school at Hopkins, where she found her passion for neurology. She completed her residency, published groundbreaking research, and became chief of neurology by 39. She earned $400,000 a year, owned her own home, and traveled often for conferences. She was used to luxury hotels. What she wasn't used to, though, despite encountering it more than once, was being treated as if she didn't belong in the spaces her hard work had earned her. Wednesday morning, the medical conference was the annual Neurological Association Summit, with 2,000 neurologists from around the country. Dr. Stevens was the keynote speaker, scheduled for 11 a.m., presenting on new treatments for stroke patients. She had prepared for months and rehearsed countless times. She was ready. But first, she wanted a workout. She woke at 6 a.m., changed into gym clothes, and headed to the hotel's second-floor gym. 45 minutes on the elliptical, some stretches, a strong start to an important day. She took the elevator to the 8th floor at 7:30, towel and water bottle in hand, keycard tucked into her leggings, mentally reviewing her presentation. When she stepped off the elevator, she saw a hotel security guard in the hallway. He was staring at her, and it wasn't a look of curiosity. It was suspicion. Dr. Stevens had encountered this enough times to know exactly what was coming. She kept moving toward her room, kept her face neutral, silently hoping maybe this time it would be different. It wasn't. Leonard Burke had been patrolling the executive floors when he saw Dr. Stevens step off the elevator. Black woman, gym clothes, no visible luggage, no professional attire. His mind made an instant judgment. Doesn't fit, doesn't belong. Probably snuck in through the gym, probably trying to access rooms she shouldn't. He stepped into her path. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave the premises immediately." Dr. Stevens halted mid-stride, just 15 feet from her room. Excuse me, I'm a guest here. Room 804. Burke's face twisted in disbelief. Room 804? I don't think so. That's an executive suite. Dr. Stevens felt the familiar weariness creeping in. Yes, it is. I'm here for a medical conference. My hospital booked it. Burke crossed his arms. Your hospital? Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but guests don't dress like that. Dr. Stevens glanced at her leggings and tank top and back at him. Dressed like what? I'm wearing workout clothes. I just came from the hotel gym. Burke shook his head. Ma'am, the gym is for paying guests. I've seen people try this before. You need to leave before I call the police. Dr. Stevens started recording. Call them. I'll wait right here while you figure out you just accused a paying guest of trespassing in her own hotel. Do you think hotel security should face immediate termination for falsely accusing guests based on appearance? Drop your thoughts below. Burke grabbed his radio. Security to front desk, need verification on room 804. Claim they have an unauthorized person on the 8th floor. Dr. Stevens' voice stayed calm but firm. My name is Dr. Kamara Stevens. I'm chief of neurology at Johns Hopkins Hospital. I checked in last night under my hospital's corporate account. I have a key card, my ID, and my conference badge is in my room. What I don't have is patience for being racially profiled by hotel security. Burke's radio crackled. Front desk here, room 804 is occupied by Dr. Kamara Stevens, Johns Hopkins Hospital. Checked in yesterday, corporate rate, scheduled checkout Friday. The voice over the radio carried clearly, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Dr. Stevens gestured toward her room. You heard that. I'm exactly who I said I was. So, are you going to let me go to my room, or are you going to keep harassing me? Burke's face reddened, but he didn't move. I still need to see your keycard. You need to see nothing. You already verified I'm a guest. You have no right to hold me here any longer. What you're doing is harassment and false imprisonment. A door opened further down the hall. A white man in a suit appeared, briefcase in hand, clearly heading to the elevators. Burke nodded at him. Morning, sir. Have a good day. His eyes shifted to the scene, Burke blocking Dr. Stevens while she recorded on her phone. His expression changed. Is everything okay here? Dr. Stevens turned to him. This security guard stopped me and accused me of trespassing. I'm a guest. Room 804. The man's face darkened. That's Dr. Stevens. She's the keynote speaker at the neurology conference. I saw her at the reception last night. He looked at Burke. Why are you stopping her? Burke stumbled over his words. I was verifying her credentials. She just told you her room number. You confirmed it with the front desk. What more verification do you need? Another door opened. A black woman in her 50s, also dressed in workout clothes, stepped into the hallway. She looked at the situation and instantly understood. Dr. Stevens, I'm Dr. Patricia Morgan. We met last night. Is this officer giving you trouble? He stopped me and said I don't look like I belong in an executive suite. Dr. Morgan's expression hardened. I'm in an executive suite too. Room 817. Want to verify my credentials as well, or is it just her you decided to profile? Burke was trapped. Multiple witnesses, a recording, the front desk confirmation that Dr. Stevens was indeed a guest, and the undeniable fact that he had stopped her based solely on her appearance. Ma'am, if I offended you, I apologize. I was just doing my job. Your job is to protect guests, not harass them. Dr. Stevens' voice cut sharply through the hallway. You saw a black woman in workout clothes and decided she couldn't possibly afford to stay here? You didn't ask for my keycard first. You told me to leave. You threatened to call the police. And you only backed down after the front desk confirmed exactly what I told you. The man in the suit spoke up. I'm recording this too. He held up his phone. I'm an attorney. This is racial profiling and unlawful detention. You should know that. Burke's radio crackled again. Security, we need you at the front desk. Manager wants to speak with you. Burke looked at Dr. Stevens, then at the growing audience, then finally turned and walked toward the elevators. Dr. Stevens continued to her room. Her hand shook as she unlocked the door, not from fear, but from rage, violation, and the exhaustion of being excellent, successful, and accomplished, yet still treated like she didn't belong. She sat on the edge of the bed and called the conference organizer. You need to know what just happened. Hotel security racially profiled me outside my room. Within an hour, conference organizers had contacted hotel management. Within 2 hours, the hotel's general manager was knocking on Dr. Stevens' door, offering an apology and a complimentary stay. Dr. Stevens declined. I don't want free rooms. I want accountability. I want to know how many other guests of color have been stopped by your security. I want that guard fired, and I want a public apology. The manager promised an investigation. At 11 a.m., Dr. Stevens delivered her keynote presentation to 2,000 neurologists in the ballroom. She began by recounting what had happened that morning. Before I discuss stroke treatment innovations, I need to tell you about the stroke of racism I experienced 3 hours ago in this very hotel. The room went silent. She described the encounter in detail. Burke's assumptions, his threats, his refusal to believe her until a white man confirmed her identity. "I'm chief of neurology at one of the top hospitals in the world," she said, her voice steady. "I've published 60 peer-reviewed articles. I've trained hundreds of residents. I've saved countless lives." But none of that mattered to hotel security. They saw my skin color and decided I was trespassing. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. A video of her opening remarks went viral immediately. Someone in the audience had recorded it. By the afternoon, the video had 5 million views. By evening, 10 million. By the next morning, 22 million people had seen Dr. Kamara Stevens call out the Harborview Grand Hotel for racial profiling. Should hotels face financial penalties when security staff target guests based on race? Let me know what you think. The hotel scrambled to control the damage. Public apologies, promises of retraining, but the story only grew. Other guests spoke up. A black tech executive stopped in the pool area. A Latino businessman questioned in the restaurant. An Asian family asked to prove they were guests before using the elevator. 31 documented complaints over 15 years, all involving guests of color, all dismissed. Leonard Burke was fired within a week. His termination letter was clear. Officer Burke engaged in racial profiling against a hotel guest, creating a hostile and discriminatory environment. His actions violated hotel policy, company values, and civil rights protections. A review of his record shows a pattern of similar complaints. His employment is terminated immediately. Burke released a statement through an attorney. "I never intended to discriminate. I was following security protocols. If Dr. Stevens felt targeted, I apologize." Dr. Stevens responded publicly, without holding back. "You didn't follow protocols. Protocols mean asking for my key card. You followed bias. You saw a black woman and assumed criminality, and the hotel let you do it 31 times over 15 years. 6 weeks later, the lawsuit was filed. 13 plaintiffs, Dr. Stevens and 12 other guests of color who had been profiled by Burke over the years. The claims were serious. Racial discrimination and profiling, civil rights violations, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent hiring and supervision. The hotel tried to argue Burke was a rogue employee, but the 31 prior complaints destroyed that defense. The hotel knew and did nothing. The case settled within 10 months. $9 million divided among the 13 plaintiffs. Dr. Stevens received $1.5 million and donated a significant portion to organizations fighting discrimination in hospitality. The Harborview Grand made sweeping changes. A new security company was hired with mandatory bias training. Policies were updated to explicitly prohibit questioning guests based on appearance. Staff were required to verify guest status using keycards, not assumptions. An independent review board was created for discrimination complaints. Quarterly audits of security interactions were implemented. Formal apologies were sent to every guest who had been profiled. But the damage to the hotel's reputation was lasting. Conference organizers canceled future events, corporate clients pulled accounts. The Harborview Grand became synonymous with racial profiling. Revenue fell by 30%. The general manager was fired. The ownership group sold the property at a loss. Dr. Stevens became an advocate. She testified before the Massachusetts legislature about discrimination and public accommodations. "I paid $600 a night to stay at that hotel. My hospital paid. I was an invited keynote speaker at a major medical conference. Yet I was treated like a trespasser because Leonard Burke couldn't imagine a black woman could afford an executive suite." She paused. "I had credentials. I had confirmation from the front desk. I had witnesses. I stayed calm. I documented everything. But I shouldn't have needed any of that. I should have been able to walk to my room in workout clothes without being stopped. That's what white guests do every day without question." 8 months later, the Massachusetts legislature passed the Hotel Guest Protection Act. Hotels with more than 50 rooms must train staff on anti-discrimination policies. Security personnel are required to document reasons for stopping guests. 3 substantiated complaints now trigger mandatory review and potential termination. Hotels can face fines up to $50,000 for patterns of discrimination. Dr. Stevens' keynote speech became part of hospitality management programs across the country. Her calm, detailed recounting of the incident became a teaching tool about implicit bias and its real-world consequences. Her lawsuit became a case study in corporate negligence, but her message never wavered. This wasn't about Leonard Burke being uniquely racist. This was about a system that allows security to use race as a measure of belonging. It was about hotels prioritizing the comfort of white guests over the dignity of guests of color. It was about the assumption that luxury hotels are for white people, and everyone else has to prove they can afford to be there. Leonard Burke's career was over. That was consequence. I received a settlement. That was accountability. But money and firings couldn't erase the fact that 31 guests had been profiled over 15 years. They didn't account for the countless others who were stopped and never complained. They didn't fix the bias that made hotel staff see black guests in workout clothes and assume they were trespassers. Dr. Stevens continued her work at Johns Hopkins, but the incident left a mark. Hyper-awareness when staying at hotels. The instinct to dress formally even in casual settings. The exhaustion of knowing that her professional accomplishments meant nothing to someone who only saw her skin color. Therapy helped her process the trauma. Community support gave validation. Advocacy gave her purpose. 2 years later, Dr. Stevens was invited back to Boston to speak at a hospitality industry conference on diversity and inclusion. She stood in a hotel ballroom, not the Harborview Grand, but a competitor across the harbor, and addressed an audience of hotel managers, security directors, and HR professionals. When Leonard Burke stopped me, she began, he didn't see a doctor. He didn't see a keynote speaker. He didn't see a guest who'd paid for an executive suite. He saw a black woman in workout clothes, and his brain told him she didn't belong. That's not a security protocol. That's racism disguised as vigilance. The room was silent. If your security staff can't imagine that guests of color can afford your rooms, you have a problem. If they stop black guests at rates 9 times higher than white guests, you have a problem. If you receive 31 complaints over 15 years and dismiss all of them, you don't just have a problem, you're complicit in discrimination. She paused. I was lucky. I had credentials. I had witnesses. I had a platform. But most guests don't. Most people who get profiled in your hotels don't have the resources to fight back. They check out early. They never return. They tell their friends. And you lose business because you hire security that treats brown skin as suspicious. The hotel industry began changing slowly. Major chains introduced bias training. Security companies revised their procedures. Guest complaint systems were improved. But the fundamental challenge remained. How do you train people to question their own assumptions when those assumptions feel like common sense? Dr. Stevens partnered with the American Hotel and Lodging Association to create a training program. Real scenarios, video examples, role-playing exercises. The goal wasn't just to teach what not to do. It was to help security staff recognize their own biases before acting on them. She also created a resource for travelers of color, Know Your Rights, Hotel Edition. A guide explaining what guests can do when profiled, how to document incidents, file complaints, and escalate issues to corporate offices. The guide was downloaded 300,000 times in its first year. But despite the advocacy, the reforms, the lawsuit, the termination, and the public apology, incidents continued. Different hotels, different cities, different security guards making the same assumptions. Black guests stopped at pools, Latino families questioned at breakfast, Asian travelers asked to prove they were guests before using the elevator. The pattern persisted because the bias ran deeper than any one person or policy. 3 years after her confrontation with Leonard Burke, Dr. Stevens was staying at a hotel in Chicago for another conference. She was in the hallway outside her room, dressed casually after an evening presentation, when a security guard approached. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you a guest here?" Dr. Stevens felt the familiar exhaustion return. "Yes, room 1204. May I see your key card?" She showed it. The guard nodded and walked away. No apology, no acknowledgement that he had profiled her. Just a routine verification that white guests never experienced. Dr. Stevens went to a room and called a friend.
It never ends. I'm still being stopped. I'm still being questioned. It doesn't matter what I've accomplished. It doesn't matter how many hotels get sued. Someone always assumes I don't belong.
Her friend listened, then said, "But you keep fighting. You keep speaking up. You keep making them uncomfortable. That matters." It does, Dr. Stevens agreed. But it shouldn't have to be this hard to just exist in the spaces we've earned. The real question remained, what changes now? Do hotels finally recognize that guests come in all colors and income levels? Do they train security to verify guest status without profiling? Do they create consequences that make staff think twice before assuming someone doesn't belong? Because if we don't fix the systems that protected Leonard Burke through 31 complaints, if we don't confront the bias that tells people brown skin doesn't belong in luxury hotels, if we don't insist that hospitality truly means welcoming everyone who pays, then we're just waiting for the next viral video, the next lawsuit, the next guest treated like a criminal for checking into a room they paid for. Comment below if you think hotels should lose their business licenses after 3 substantiated discrimination incidents. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, if you think accountability matters, and if you think hospitality should respect all paying guests, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding hotels fire security staff who profile before complaints reach 31. We're going to keep fighting for a world where a doctor can walk to her hotel room in workout clothes without being accused of trespassing. This isn't just about Leonard Burke or Dr. Kamara Stevens. It's about all of us and whether we're willing to confront the bias that makes luxury spaces feel like they're only for white people.